So the month of May for a lot of golf fans means some of the events they're used to, the Wells Fargo for the men, the Cognizant for the women, and even maybe the PGA Championship for the men. But for those that work in pro golf, like all three of us, May means U.S. Open qualifying season. We've already heard Scotty's schedule. Spuddy, what are you doing for the month of May as far as U.S. Open qualifying?
So I had recently left my last player, Mi-Hung Lee, who was in the U.S. Open, so I didn't have any time to do any qualifying. But my current boss is also in the U.S. Open as well, from her previous win last year. So perfect. So no qualifying this year, but I did caddy for my girlfriend, Maddie Zarek, at the U.S. Open qualifier at Ohio State's golf course, the Scarlet course. So unfortunately, she fell short. But she did. That's a tough golf course. Definitely has similar traits to Upper Montclair, thick rough, tough holes, firmer greens. Obviously, we're playing a little softer this week, but it was definitely a test. But after U.S. Open, I mean, I have to fly down to Florida where I live, go to a couple doctor's appointments in between Liberty National and the U.S. Open. So it would be convenient to stay, especially with my parents being up about an hour and a half north of here. But heading back down to Florida for a quick visit, then I'll head back up to Lancaster.
All right, Spuddy, you're our first guest. A couple of questions. We want to talk a little bit about the craft of the job. You've been doing this just a handful of years. What are some of the most important traits that you've picked up on and that you try to employ as a tour caddy?
I mean, first off, it's just your demeanor out there. It's your attitude. It's about being, your player wants to be around you, comfortable. So just making sure that you're doing everything you can to make your player comfortable, yourself comfortable in that space. Comfort makes all the difference in a player's confidence. The way you make decisions, the tone of your voice, the way you deliver the message. I mean, that means everything. Obviously, there's, all the intangibles of wind and the lie and all the things that you learn over time. But also I'd say more than 50% of the job is done by, how you carry yourself and the routines that you develop.
Okay.
Spuddy.
Go ahead, Scotty.
Yeah, Spuddy, I'll ask what the people really want to hear. Now, you talked about you have a new boss and you left your old boss. Now, you took Mi-Hung Lee from well over 100 in the world to top 60 in the world now, currently. Is that correct?
She was at around 300 on the Rolex when I first started working with her at ShopRite last year.
And what is she now?
I believe she's 69 or 70.
So an unbelievable job for her. What went into the decision, and why did you decide ultimately it was time to move on to a different boss?
I mean, it's, we all have a life out here. I really enjoyed working with Mi-Hung. She's a very intense player. I mean, there are times where you're under the gun or just things you go through in the daily routine. Very thankful. She played great. We played a few, obviously, Asia events where there was no cut, but out of 25 events, we only missed 4 cuts. It was, she played very good, consistent golf, and that was a pleasure to be a part of. I just was looking for, a change after, about a year's stretch of work. Like, if it doesn't feel right, if you don't feel like you're completely fulfilled in everything that you want to do, I mean, I'm working out here for myself. Obviously, the success was very, good and had a few tied for third finishes in the beginning of the season. But I just felt like our communication was starting to, slip and change. And there were, things that just felt a little off. And I figured it was just a appropriate time to find a new opportunity.
No, I really appreciate that.
I like that. And also, you did mention, again, I'm going to get questions about this. You mentioned caddying for your girlfriend, Maddie. Talk about what that's like. working alongside your significant other, not only in the same workplace, but sometimes actually working together. That is a very interesting dynamic that we get in the women's side of the game that we don't see as at all in the men's side.
Yeah, it's it's awesome. You know what? I've caddied for in a few pro-ams and charity events and things like that, where it's kind of, hit and giggle and I'm not really doing my thorough work, just slinging a 9-iron at her and saying, hey, like, I think this is the club. But when we did the US Open qualifier, that was the first time I actually worked with her in a competition and with the scorecard in her hand. That was went way better than I expected. Just because you never know what kind of things you may say to somebody that you're just more comfortable with in a situation when it comes to, a previous shot or something, but it ended up being completely different where I was, there's a lot of comfort that comes into that just on her side, just knowing I'm there, but also it makes me feel more comfortable too, because I'm completely comfortable with her. So making decisions on the golf course were actually much easier. And you know what, you can laugh and talk about anything you really want. So it's definitely, you have everything at your disposal. It was an awesome experience. But I would say, to second that, I'd say on the LPGA tour, it's kind of a tough thing to do, is to pair up with your significant other and do it week to week. It can definitely become taxing and put stress on the relationship. So we always say that we wouldn't do it, but you never know.
Well, I've seen it done many times, and I don't think I've ever seen it end well. So I will just give you that piece of advice from many, many years of observation and actually practice in my own life and my own relationships. Not the thing I want to jump feet first with. If I'm you and I'm a young caddy with a young player, I would definitely separate work and professional responsibilities. All right. So you've been doing this a couple of years. You've been around some really good caddies. You've also been around some not so good caddies. What are some habits you've seen some tour caddies display that you've made a note, I don't ever want to do that on a golf course?
Man, that's a tough one. It's tough to kind of go when you're doing your own job. Watching someone else do their job is kind of like, it's not in my mind right now. I'm really not watching other guys work. I'm really focusing on what I'm doing and what the task at hand is. But I guess on the greens, if you're standing around, and I guess more bad habits just on the golf course, do you mean? Or do you mean anything off the course as well?
I mean, guys that are going to be listening to this, there's guys that maybe working at the tour level listen to this, but guys at the country club level that maybe aspire to one day get to the tour level. So what are some things you would definitely caution against doing if you want to make it to this level that you're at?
Man, I think the things you want to stay away from is being around the wrong crowd. You want to surround yourself with the right people, and the people that do the right things and are good at their job. So if you're ever curious, my best tip, I think, was when I first started out here was who are the people I should be around, and I was told a few caddies, hey, like I would try and befriend these people and definitely get into that group of people and because if you go towards the guys that end up liking to go out and drink too much or whatever there's always a few, but it doesn't look good. So having a positive image of yourself, and then also just staying within your lane when it comes to finding jobs, things like that. So I mean, you can't be sticking your nose into other people's business. It's been done, but I just say, when you get out here, you just have to kind of abide by, the invisible rules, per se.
I think that's all good, solid advice. Scotty Worldwide, I know you've got a couple of questions for Spuddy.
Yeah, absolutely. This is fun. Spuddy, let me take you back, because you actually did this job. Then you went to work in an office, and then you came back out. What was the deciding factor to get you back out to tour life?
Man, it couldn't have been an easier decision, but to get to that, I mean, I've always kind of jumped back and forth between caddying, even if it was at a club, per se, like Hudson National or the Park. I'd always go back to work there. It was always a fallback, and so I always had this idea that tour caddying was just a temporary 5-year thing, maybe a couple of years, and then you go find a job in an office and you get a nice paycheck and a retirement, and you have a family. You don't ever travel, and it's
Gosh,
kind of
that sounds
complete
awesome.
Yeah, I'm not too interested in that now. I really enjoy this, but it's honestly, it's tough. I mean, can you repeat the question though?
Yeah. So for those of you that don't know, Spuddy, you spent some time out here. Then you went to
Yes.
go work at Chipsticks.
Yes.
And then ultimately you came back to this life. And that's not, you don't see a lot of that. Once people go office and kind of decide to be home, a lot of people don't come back out to traveling and living out of a suitcase, not knowing how much money they're going to make that year. You decided, screw the office. I'm going to go pick up a golf bag and go hang out with crazy people like me. So what pushed you over the edge to make that choice?
What pushed me over the edge was honestly the money that I was getting paid. Money makes everybody happy. And if I was going to make the money I was at home, I might as well do it on the road and really venture out. Give myself an opportunity, because if you don't, then you'll never do it. I was newly single when I first started the job, and that plays a huge role in our job. I mean, family and relationships can really take a toll on all of that. So I had that opportunity, and I enjoyed the job, but after a while, just being stuck in an office, I gotta be moving. So
yeah, no,
yeah.
I get it. So you talk about being with the right crowd. Can you name the caddy that you kind of look up to most, or you follow in his or her footsteps, that's kind of giving you the most advice? And so maybe a young caddy listening to this can look at the way he or she handles business and follow them.
I mean, no offense to you guys, but the name that instantly comes to mind is Paul Cormack.
No doubt.
So I had the privilege of meeting Paul before he even caddied on the LPGA. I went and club caddied down at Old Memorial in Tampa in 2016 to 17 winter, and just met Paul, pretty much immediately at our caddy training, and former player, Canadian Tour, has a ton of experience with golf, hell of a player, and just a great guy overall. But he always does everything. He's the most thorough caddy I've met, and
who does he currently work for, just for our listeners?
He works for Lydia Co.
There you go.
So yeah, he knows. I mean, and he spent 5 years with Anna Nordquist. I mean, bunch of championships there. He's just a great caddy. He's proven it over and over again, just by the way he carries himself and the work he does. So I look up to Paul. I look up to a number of caddies, because of their work ethic, and it definitely makes a difference when you're out there doing that. You're just more prepared. He's got everything he possibly needs.
Yeah, no doubt. Definitely shout out to Paul Cormack, someone that has helped me tremendously in my career as well. So.
Well, Spuddy, we're getting ready to wrap up this episode. Thanks for coming on as our first guest. Any final thoughts for you that you want to leave the listeners with, and maybe something they can look out for in the future from you and your boss?
I mean, just keep an eye out. I mean, she's definitely she's in a bit of a swing change right now with ball flight. She's been playing the spade, and it was beautiful, and I think she's starting to turn it into a little bit of a right to left movement. So definitely some work being done at the moment, but I mean, she's proven winner, like I've said earlier. I mean, silver medal in the Olympics. 14 professional wins. She has the ability at any week to do something big. So I'm very excited to be a part of it. And you know, for the people listening, I mean, this is a very exciting life. It's an amazing job. If you ever wanted to do it, I would definitely recommend it. Like it's honestly the best thing, you know, for me, and that's why I appreciate it so much. It's a real thrill when you're out there competing against the best. And it's honestly, you know, it's an amazing experience. So.
Well, awesome. Thank you for all that, Spuddy.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show, Scotty Worldwide. Any final thoughts for you on this show?
No, but just, you know, come check out the LPGA. We're going to be on network TV, ESPN Plus groups tomorrow afternoon. So always good to, you know, see different cameras and different things that we don't get a lot. So also, if you get a chance to watch on TV, 2 really, really historic, neat golf courses. Everyone that's watched probably the President's Cup or even FedEx Cup playoff event back in the day is familiar with Liberty National next week. So to see the women on that golf course, I think is always pretty cool.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks, both of you. Nick, thanks, Scott, for joining me and giving me your opinion from my side of the bag.
Go be kind to one another.
Peace out.